Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for being here this evening. Welcome to Enough Pies Arts Activism Talks. Is Black History Month still relevant on Charleston's Peninsula today? I am your facilitator for this evening, Thatika Robinson with Enough Pie. I'm the executive director, and I have the privilege of being here with three amazing individuals that represent different perspectives in the community, from community keeper to community advocate to artist and activist. And so I want to go ahead and welcome them in and also introduce them. And just want to let you know as we get started that as we engage, we will have a panel discussion and go into our dialogue from there. We'll go into a dialogue from there, and then we'll have our Q&A, and then we will follow up with questions at the end. So please do use the question chat box to add your questions into the chat. And Simone Liberty, who is Enough Pie's Stakeholder Relations Manager, is the Oz behind the curtain, making sure we're running smoothly this evening. And so as you drop them in there, she will feed those to me at the end, and we'll make sure we get those questions answered. All right, so I will go ahead and get started to introduce our panel for this evening. So Anjene Davis is a committed community advocate who has dedicated his time and career to improving the quality of life for those around him. Much of his efforts have been focused on advocating for quality educational opportunities for youth, fair and affordable housing opportunities for people from all economic levels, and employment opportunities that provide fair and livable wages. He is an employee of the Charleston County School District and has served on the boards of numerous local community organizations and groups, oftentimes in a leadership capacity. His professional experience has been largely in nonprofit or community development organizations in both leadership and administrative positions. He also has a consulting business that is targeted toward nonprofit, community-based, and municipalities organizations called Community Solutions Consulting. He is also the father of a 17-year-old son, Jelani, whom he loves dearly. His hobbies include reading, music, exercise, travel when he has time, and enjoying time with his family and friends. Zania Cummings is born and raised in Charleston, South Carolina. She is an actor, poet, creative, formerly based in New York City. She received her classical training at the American Academy of Dramatic Arts, becoming a member of the Academy Company upon graduating. While studying in New York, she rediscovered her love of spoken word and has been performing as a spoken word artist ever since. As a creative, she is interested in intersectionality of art, often creating poetic performances and poetic films. Her latest poetic film, Alchemy, won Best Poetic Short Film in the Detroit Black Film Festival, becoming a reoccurring feature at the National Black Theater Festival. A proud believer in activism through art, her poetry attempts to conjure the voices of those who came before her. She believes moving in her purpose means serving the community around her, and why not art? Building safe spaces within the community is one of Zania's main motivations for creating art. Recently, co-curating 3000 Black, Charleston's very first Afrofuturistic art exhibition. And she believes that she wants to create art and to create spaces where people can be their authentic selves. Councilman Robert Mitchell is also born and raised here in Charleston. He's a councilman and was elected representative of the District 4 area in November 2002. He has also served as council member for District 2 from 1988 to 2002. As said before, he's born and raised in downtown Charleston on the Peninsula, and Mitchell is a devoted servant of the community with several awards and accolades and recognitions for his work and advocacy over the years. Thank you so much to all three of you for being here this evening on the panel and on the discussion. We're looking forward to the conversation with you all. So as we get started, what I'd like to do is do something a little different. We're gonna call this free verse introductions. And so what we're gonna do, the goal of this is to set the tone of the space and set the energy to allow our attendees to get the opportunity to connect and engage with you, and also for you all to just take a breather and become one into the space. So with this free verse, I'll go first as an example. And so once you get done, you could pick someone and then keep it going to that person until we're complete. So I am excited. I am focused. I am engaged. I am feeling connected. I am feeling, rested. I am feeling liberated. I am feeling joyful. Anjene.
Sorry, I'm good now.
Like me.
So, so good evening, everyone. I'm AJ Davis, Anjene Davis, and I guess I'll start by saying I'm appreciative of this opportunity. I am concerned. I am anxious. I am pensive. I'm frustrated. I am also optimistic. I am determined. I am dedicated. I am deliberative. Yeah, I'm a thesaurus, so I'm gonna go ahead and stop and pass it over to Ms. Zania.
Hello, everyone. I am grateful. I am hopeful. I too am optimistic. I too am frustrated. I am anxious. I am joyful. I am feeling empathetic. I am not a thesaurus. I am feeling giddy. I'm feeling open. I'm feeling optimistic. I am determined. And I'm gonna pass it over to Councilman Mitchell.
I don't know how much I can say, so everybody else already said everything. But I can say one thing, that I am here. That's the main thing. I'm here, and I'm still trying to move forward from where we came from, and I believe there's still a lot of work to do. And we have to persevere as our ancestors and our grandfathers and mothers did. And this, I believe that I'm here to advocate for others who can't advocate for themselves. And also even out in the community, give them information that they would normally not have. And that's normally what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to do that every day for all these years. And like I say, it's sometimes a little different because I've been here for a number of years, So it's a little different from where I came and when I'm really noticing what's happening today. And it's much different from where we came from and where we need to go and still trying to go.
Yes.
That's it.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you all for participating in that. Y'all did great. I love how you all added your own personal spin to it. And my excitement in the midst of everything that you all set into the space and set the tone of the energy. Thank you so much. My excitement is this conversation dialogue period. So as we elevate our voices in this space and we honor truth and transparency and liberation, we're going to go ahead and get started with our first question. So the 2020 census shared that downtown Peninsula has changed drastically. The most recent numbers showed us at about 20% Black Americans represented. Considering your experiences on Charleston's Peninsula today, how does Black History Month hit you this year?
You want me to go? Oh.
Any of you can go.
Oh, okay. In the city of Charleston, yes, we have dropped around 23, 24% in the city of Charleston, but we are still here. And while we are still here, we have to start being engaged with things that's happening in the city of Charleston. We have to find a way, which I try a lot, to have our young people engaged in what's happening in this peninsula and in the city of Charleston, North Charleston, be the case, even the state of South Carolina, if you may, by educating them, giving them knowledge of things that they think they know, but they don't know. It's a lot of things that happened in the past, and we can't go back to the past, but we can let the past lead us to the future, that we don't have to go back to the same thing that we have done before. In my younger days, coming up, my parents were strong, and the household was strong. They ran their homes. My mother was a strong person. My father was a little easygoing, but my mother was strong, very strong, and she pushed education. But they ran their homes. And what I'm seeing now is different. The young people are now running the homes, but the parents are still there. So we need to find some way to educate these young parents that they have to be the parent of the house, not the friends of the house of the kids that they have. And I always tell my kids, they're grown now, and even my grands and great grands, that I can be friendly to you, but you're not my friend because you didn't grow up with me. It's a little different today when you're seeing young people going out the same places that parents are going to. So we have lost, to me, a lot of respect that we grew up with. And I'm part of what they consider as the baby boomers, if you may. So the way I grew up was totally different. And it was 8 of us. But my mother was strong. She didn't play games at all. I have a sister, she might beat me up when she hears this, but she came from school one day and she told my mother, said, Mom, I have some classmates and their parents let people come over to the house, and they can sit down and we can play and talk. My mother said, oh yes, that's what they do? She said, not here. She said, I'm gonna tell you what you do. All the brothers and sisters you have enough company. Go and read a book and study some lessons. And that's the way my parents raised us, all 8. And all 8 did fine. But they had that strong values, and they pushing us to strong values. And we grew up with the values, and we tried to do that with our young people, with our children. And even my grands, I had 6 girl grands, and I think AJ knows some of them. And they didn't play. These young girls didn't play. AJ knows that,
Yes.
AJ can tell you all about that. So, but yeah. I taught my grands, because it was 6 girl grands I had. That's in the beginning. That's all I had was girls. I taught them the same thing I taught my daughters then when they grew up. Be independent. Rely on yourself. Be independent. If you grew up, get married or whatever the case may be, and you want to act, you have a young man, a gentleman act crazy like we do sometimes, and they want to leave, you can always stand on your own. Always be independent. So all my grands right now, they're independent. All my girls now, they're independent. My sons, they're independent. So I preach that and teach that. And they're doing fine, doing better than I am sometimes, but this is what I grew up with, and this is what the values I try to instill in the young people in the city of Charleston, where I represent, and outside the city, because we can represent a district, but we also represent the city of Charleston. Right. Because we have to vote on everything that comes through with us. And they'll tell you on council, I do not play games. That's not me. I listen very attentively and I vote my own conviction. Nobody stands over my head to tell me what to do. I don't care what they have given me doing campaign time or whatever. I don't play that. That's not the way I grew up. I'm a self person and I get up there. I'm out in the community like 1 o'clock in the morning, driving through to see the elements that's going on and trying to get it solved. I'm on the corner talking to people what they consider as drug dealers. I don't call them drug dealers. I said, come to New York and let me show you some drug dealers. They are drug runners. You know, someone bringing it into the community and giving it to them to the somebody in the community. So these are the things sometimes we got to educate our people too and get it going. And I can go in the corner and talk to anyone on the corners. I'm standing on the corner talking to them. People get angry with me and say, oh, look what Councilman Mitchell's talking to, but that's all right. But how could I get them to change their ways if I can't compensate with them? But I learned that I got my teaching on the streets of New York and Manhattan. Stand on the corners doing it, but also had values, but never was involved in those type things, but could relate. So these are some of the things that I've done in my, my time and seeing the changes that have taken place. And with us, like I say, the population have dropped, but we are still here. Let no one fool you. We are still here in the city of Charleston. We have to get our young people on the public housing and all these other places that's still living there where the numbers are to get out and make a difference, get to those polls when it's time to vote and not talking on the corners. Speaking on the corners is not going to do any good. You got to make your voice be heard. And this is what I tell them every day.
Thank you so much, Councilman. We appreciate that. Zania?
So the question, sorry, the question is how, sorry, I'm gonna look at my notes considering.
No, that's okay.
How does Black History Month hit you this year? So for me, it's a year of preservation. At this point, I feel like the main goal is preserving the culture in order to expand it. Like Councilman Mitchell said, making sure that the young people are involved, making sure that the young people know, making sure that the young people are active in the community and that we're doing outreach to them. Because if Charleston is only 20% Black, if the Peninsula is only 20% Black now, we now have to make sure that that 20% is a strong standing community, because at this point it's only gonna lessen, and I pray that it doesn't lessen. We have to do everything we can to preserve that community, but make that percentage strong, make that percentage a unit, because Charleston is so sacred. The Black community in Charleston is very sacred. And I think this year, Black History Month, like I said before, is about preservation, preserving the culture, making sure that there is a deep sense of self within the community so that we can expand and go farther. So
thank you. Anjene?
So Black History Month for me this year hit a little different, and for a variety of reasons. There's a full-on assault on Black culture, not just Black history, but Black culture, the present, and that is, in my opinion, very detrimental to the future. When I look at the statistics about the Peninsula and working at Burke High School with over 100 years of history in Charleston and South Carolina, I see a trend that far too few seem to want to address. And one of the things that I look at is when we use the term community, does that really apply for many of the folks on the Peninsula now? Do folks have that true sense of community like Councilman Mitchell talked about? Do people see their existence on the Peninsula as community, or this is just where I am right now? And so I look at Black History Month as an opportunity, should we choose to take advantage of it, to revisit that and be willing to have some challenging and some difficult conversations. Those conversations are going to be intergenerational. They're going to be intersectional. And I think that for me, the statistics of the Peninsula belie a much more significant issue, and that is the sense of place that Black people have in general. So stop there.
Thank you. All of you did a fabulous job of speaking from a global perspective with your answers. My question to you additionally would be, how do you feel about our current ways of celebrating Black history today? And when you answer that, is there anything that you would change about it? And what I mean by that is that there is a debate that has been going on for maybe the last couple of years that has been where people feel like, I don't want to just celebrate my culture or my people or myself in February. I want, we're going to do it all through the year. And some people have pushed back with that and said, I'm not going to really lift up specific things during that month. I'm going to do it year round through all the 12 months. So we see the hashtag of Black History 365, every day, and then you also see where we still have individuals that are having events specifically in Black History Month. And, it's like, okay, this is the time to have it. Let's elevate us during this time. When you think about that and how do you, the way that we currently do celebrate Black History Month, what are your thoughts about that? And how would you change it if you could? What would you like to see change with that?
Well, to me, Black history, we celebrate Black History Month in February. I understand that. But to me, Black history is every day. And always been to me is every day. We are still here. We are part of this society from the city of Charleston into the country. We are here. So long as we are here, it is Black history. So it's history every day. We can celebrate it in February if that's the case, maybe they want to do it, but then we have to do it every day. We have to look at our churches. We have to look at the different, and it's not about denominations. I push that aside. Churches, period, even the mosque. We have to look at them. We have to come together. We have to look at all these Greek organizations. We have to look at all the Masonic organizations. They can make a difference by being out here also, spreading the word with the young people, with everyone throughout the year. So you don't have to wait till 1 month to say, okay, we're gonna celebrate Black history just this 1 month. We can do it throughout the year. And this would make a big difference because some who miss this would still receive something by going every day of the year. And that's my things on it. I believe that's the changes that I want to see happening and getting these organizations, and not saying they're not doing anything, but saying that we can do more. We all can do more. And that's including myself. I can try, we can do more.
Thank you. Zania or Anjene?
So yeah, when it comes to the idea that Black History Month year round, 100%, 1000%, I agree with Councilman Mitchell that we should be doing, we shouldn't wait until February to do the open mics, to do the art exhibitions, to do the things within our community that lifts us up. Of course, let's not wait till February, but February is like, I love Black History Month. I love that we have an entire month to ourselves. And I also feel the way I grew up with Black History Month, it was very like school oriented, decorate the doors, write an essay. But I think when it comes to the idea of waiting until February to write the essay on MLK or do the research on a Black author that you never knew or a Black entertainer, no, this should be every month, every day, we should be acknowledging these people because it's not just Black history, it's history. It's history. It's our history. So yeah, the thing that I would like to see change for Black History Month, I think just more. just more. Like if Black History Month is going to be our month, it should be the most elaborate month. And then the rest of the year is just Black magic, you know, sprinkled throughout the entire year. But just more throughout the entire year and more during the month as well.
More. We hear you. Anjene?
So yeah, I agree with everyone. I come at it from a different perspective, understanding the history of Black History Month, which was birthed out of the fact that Black people were not recognized. Our accomplishments, our cult, not just our history, but our existence was not recognized by the larger body. And esteemed leaders like the late Dr. Carter G. Woodson got us a week first. And then in 1976, Gerald Ford created what we now know as Black History Month. But that came because Black people, specifically Black organizations and Black colleges, had expanded Black History Week into a month-long celebration. And so while I understand what people are saying, and I totally agree, but I'm also a realist. If we're going to celebrate Black History 365, then just celebrate it. We don't have to make pronouncements. And I think that it comes back to the sense of ownership. Black history is Black history. It's ours. If it's something that we believe in, it's something that we see value in, then it should be something that should not be restricted to a month, but it should be embedded in who we are, our way of life. And what I would also like to state in that, as we have this conversation, understand that there are forces at play right now in the South Carolina General Assembly. There is a bill in the State House. When people talk about, well, Black history should be taught 365 in schools, there's a bill right now being voted on to strip that. And there's a reason why that bill exists. And it goes back to what Councilman Mitchell said. We have to, when we say we are Black people, we are Black pride, we are Black excellence, then that needs to show up in every aspect. That needs to show up both politically, that needs to show up culturally, that needs to show up economically. And so right now, even the idea of celebrating Black excellence is under attack as we speak. So to the point, for me, yes, I think Black History Month is vitally important. I think the way that we celebrate it, as Councilman Mitchell said, I would have to say over the last 5 or 6 years, I've been disappointed because I honestly feel like we go through the motions, but I also feel like it coincides with just the degradation of Black people. I mean, all of us on this call, when's the last time we've had a year where we haven't had a high-profile killing of a Black person? Like, we can't even celebrate being Black because we're trying to defend being Black. So for me, that's what's always sticking when I start talking about celebrating my people. I would love to celebrate us in peace. That's what I want. And so I feel like that's what's been lacking. I'll stop there.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. So I'm going to center the conversation back locally to Charleston on the Peninsula. So we've reflected on it from Charleston, the Peninsula, to our experience, to even going national. So if we like bring it back down, hyper focus on the city, downtown Peninsula, my question to you is, what do you remember most when you reflect off of our history downtown? And what about that impacts you when you look at how the streets have become more commercialized, or lack of Black Americans in communities or neighborhoods, like, for example, King Street, Meeting Street, Upper Peninsula, et cetera? How does that impact you? And I'll just say, as a young girl who my roots go to Johns Island and also Guatemala, my mom's parents raised her on Bogart Street and her siblings. So they lived on the east side in the beginning, and they moved, and then they bought their house on Bogart Street. For me, I remember when King Street looked totally different. I remember as a little Black girl that I could walk down the streets and I saw reflections of myself within the businesses and within the business owners and in the streets. There were symbolizations that I could relate to. There were Black churches that I went to that I learned really about spirituality, going to my grandmother's church at Greater St. Luke AME, really seeing the spirit move, being on the streets of Bogart Street where it was all Black owned, like everyone on the block, to the store, the convenience store that was around the corner that I could walk to and get penny gum. You know, the neighbors took care of each other. My mom remembers babysitting other individuals, going to New York with them when they had to travel. So there's so many landmarks that people don't see now today because it's just been erased. And I mean, that's the best word I can use to really explain how it feels to me. Can you all speak from your perspective of the time being born and raised in Charleston or living in Charleston? What do you know, how is that remembering what you know and then what you've seen and then what you see now, and how is that impacting you today as we focus on, when we talk about history, not just Black history as in the month, but the history of Charleston? How is that impacting you?
Oh, that's a lot. The history of Charleston, as I grew up here too, and same as you, Mr. Robinson, my family goes back 350 years on Johns Island. My grandparents, I used to go out there and help them in the fields. My grandfather did not like the city of Charleston. He would not come in the city of Charleston. The only time he come in was on Saturdays to help my grandmother come to the market to bring over to the goods. And fast as he unloaded, he jumped back on Esau Jenkins' van and head back to Johns Island. Didn't like other people, if you may. Couldn't stand them. And so that's the way he grew up, and that's the way he was. He was that way, and he died that way too. He said he didn't trust him, didn't like him. So I used to look at him, and I was my grandfather, but I was afraid of him, actually, you know, because he didn't smile that much, you know. So he was all about business. They grew their crops, never asked anyone for anything. And no one could come on his land unless they come to his house first. You don't go in his fields. And that's the way he raised my mother and some of us. He was telling us about it. And he used to call me one of those lazy city boy, because, you know, I didn't want to work hard as he worked, you know, but that's just the way he worked. But as you mentioned, all of the city of Charleston, Black was there. We were like 70% in the city of Charleston during that time. Even up until 1997, we were up to 70%. We used to have even in the politics part of it, we used to have 6 and 6 African, you know, Black council members. Now we down to 3. And pretty soon, if we keep looking at it, we'd be down to 0. It has changed. King Street was a central business district. Stores, shopping, all that. All of the corner stores in the city of Charleston was owned by Blacks. You might have had some Greeks there, but most of them was owned by Blacks, all the corner stores. Right now in the city of Charleston, you can't find one Black-owned corner store in the city of Charleston anymore. I said on council, and they got a little fatigued with me, I said, if this was by design, they looked at me a long time. I said, look, to me, it's by design. They designed it this way to push us out, you know. But I said, nobody gonna push me out till I'm ready to leave. But the city of Charleston, if you look at it, it's so expensive to even live here. So a lot of us as Blacks sell their homes and move on out. Some of them lost their homes because we had young people, kids, parents left them the house paid for, even on the east side, paid for. But we as a people, we fight among ourselves. Nobody pay taxes. Nobody picks the house. So they lose it, or they'll sell the house for small amount of money. Some individual come and buy the home, throw a little paint knock a little board on it and just make it look beautiful on the outside and sell it for almost 5 times as much as they give them. And that's why it gentrified the area so much by doing that, and just keep going on and on. And we try to educate, and I try to educate my people by not selling. I say, I can't stop you from selling a home, but if you're gonna sell it, you get something for it so you can buy something somewhere else. But they don't do that. They'll sell it and go and rent, and they'll come back and say, no, they got to find a place to go because the person who they're renting from is selling that particular home. All that's gentrified the area. So how are we going to get this back? I don't know. I don't see it changing backwards that much, no. And we have, and I'm sorry to say, we have some of our own that can help others. They don't do it either. And that's some of our own people. They don't help it either. So to me, they're helping gentrify the area also. So I have a problem with that. I have a whole lot of problems, you know. I just got problems, period, when it deals with my people, you know, not helping one another, because that's what I believe in doing. You tell them one thing, they go tell somebody else, and then before you get your information out, it's already out there in the streets. So how are you going to work it? You know, you try, but it's hard. It's hard. It's hard. But the city of Charleston now, to me, is almost like gone. We have all these developments coming in, and the houses that you see building it, we're not going to be able to afford it because we're not even making that kind of money to be able to afford it. I tell everyone Wall Street is now in the city of Charleston. They said, what you mean Wall Street? Wall Street, that means the money is in the city of Charleston and they're purchasing everything. So I believe all this is designed to get us to push everything else. You don't have the public housing because it's still federal. But I don't know what's going to happen. I'm gonna tell you the truth. I don't know. I mean, AJ might know some other things too, because he's not here, but I don't know. Okay.
Well, Anjene, sounds like the stage is yours.
I think it's still muted.
Yeah, this
You're
mute
good.
button is giving me the business. So yeah, what Councilman Mitchell said, and Tatika, can you say the top part of the question again? I want to make sure I answer it. You're muted now.
Thank you. I'm trying to make sure my bracelets don't make too much noise as I move around. So as you remember, I set up the question with my experience of downtown as a little girl to now and what I've seen. And so what I'm asking each of you is, what do you remember most when you reflect off of the history of downtown? And what about the impacts when you look, what about that impacts you when you look at how the streets have become more commercialized, with lack of Black Americans in communities and neighborhoods, King Street, Meeting Street, Upper Peninsula, et cetera?
So my experience with Charleston was mid-90s, when I can say I came here to live, go to college of Charleston. Even going to the College of Charleston was different then, but definitely the Black community was a whole different feel, because you actually had what I call communities, individuals, you know, because I came from rural South Carolina. So one of the things that I sought out was Black people. I had family members on my father's side who lived downtown, Cleveland Street. So, you know, for me, being able to go on the porch of Black people and have conversations, and, you know, they ask where you're from, you know, who your people are, and you tell them what you're doing, and, you know, they, of course, oh, you at the college, because it's always the college. It's not the College of Charleston, it's you at the college. But it definitely was a different feel. And then the businesses, like you said, on King Street looked totally different. And you had businesses that reflected Black Charleston. And you felt like Black people, the indigenous people, had a place. What I love about Charleston, loved then and I still love, is when you talk to a Charlestonian, it's like going back in time in history because the dialect is beautiful. And I remember coming from where I came from and people were like, oh, you down there with the Geechees? And I was like, but I love it. And, you know, being able to walk down the street and hear that constantly, going into a business and you hear that, going into Meeting Street Piggly Wiggly and listening to the ladies behind the counter fixing everybody lunch or breakfast, you hear that and it's like, oh man, I love this. Those are things that I miss. Those are the things that I see. And I see the commercialization and the erasure of the Black imprint of Charleston, the erasure of the Black economic imprint of Charleston, because there are some people who don't even believe that some of these spaces that are now occupied by non-Black businesses were once owned and run by Black people. So it's like, not only are these things going away, but there are folks who don't even know. Like you go in a certain, it used to be if you were on the East Side, you know, you had to be Black. I mean, let's just go ahead and be honest. You know, you're not gonna be walking on the East Side anytime, especially after 5 o'clock.
Nope.
But you know, if we saw somebody who didn't look like us, we was like, what are they doing over there? You know, but now you go over there and I've had people drive and it's like night and day. So even the imprint of where we lived has been being erased to the point where folks look at you surprised when you tell them stories of, oh yeah, we used to have such and such here, and they look at you like, where? So I'll stop there.
So for me, I feel like I'm one of those people because I'm a little bit younger than you guys. So I didn't see Charleston in the 90s, didn't see Charleston in the early 2000s. I grew up in Somerville as well. So I have small remnants, like doing plays with Elder Colleytown and then visiting my best friend. She lives on Grove Street, and that's her grandmother's house, and hearing stories about that being her grandmother's dream house, and they will never sell this house because that was that rich history, that rich piece of their family history. That is something that I did not see. I've only heard stories. I only have the pieces of what I know. However, the way I feel about Charleston now, walking down King Street, you know, it's a sense of uncomfortability. I'm uncomfortable walking around downtown Charleston for the opposite reason, because it's not a chocolate city, because the people that walk near me, like they don't look like me. And also the vibe that I'm getting, it's not, I don't feel comfortable because I'm not amongst my people. I'm not seeing Black businesses. I'm around, everything is expensive and I don't feel like I belong here. And that's crazy to be in Charleston. I don't feel like I don't feel comfortable in Charleston. So yeah, I think that's all I have to say.
Thank you, all of you. Thank you. Okay. So with all that being said, let's bring this into the space of creativity. As the community is changing, which each of you have noted in your own specific ways of confirming that, how do we preserve that in the arts, activism, advocacy, and keeping our communities? What do we need to see, feel, experience to have access to that of what our ancestors did? How do we bring that forward to today?
I might let AJ go first on that one. I'll go.
So thank you, Councilman Mitchell. So let me first answer that there needs to be an acknowledgement of people like Councilman Mitchell, Councilman Lewis, Councilman Gregory, and the host of others who have come before us, and their efforts to not only navigate and help us with political representation, but cultural representation. I think to answer your question, Tatika, if we're talking about the city of Charleston, specifically downtown, there has to be a policy acknowledgement. There has to be a designation, if you will, that is supported by policy. Charleston is a city that prides itself on being renowned for its history and culture, the preservation. But in that, the preservation of the indigenous Gullah Geechee culture is not included. We're relegated to a few markers throughout the city, oftentimes in obscure places, but the well-traveled areas where the tourists actually come, you don't see that. So for me, a step would be to have an actual dedicated allocation through the city's municipal budget to recognize and preserve cultural enclaves, communities, spaces. Also from an economic standpoint, a creative standpoint, dedicating those spaces, providing the opportunity for a variety of expressions of the artistic and creativity of the Black community here, both past, present, and future. Our community, and I will say this, and I'm not saying it to be disrespectful, but it's always hilarious to me whenever I see communities that are being infringed upon, i.e. gentrified, that they will then put a mural up that has a few Black faces as if that's going to pacify the fact that you're erasing the reality of Black people. So, you know, that creativity and the respect for the creativity of our people needs to show up in the form of the cuisine. There used to, and that's something, there used to be, you came downtown Charleston, there were actually Black restaurants, literally, that you could go to get authentic Black food that feeds your soul. And how I really noticed how Charleston was changing was when those were no longer, like, legit. Like, Charleston was winning all these accolades about, you know, the culinary cuisine, and I realized how many of those restaurants had been taking little pieces of what we as a people had naturally. You know, it was only a time I would only eat Black people shrimp and grits. That's it. That's the only shrimp and grits I'm gonna eat. Then you started noticing all these other restaurants, and I'm not saying that you can't, but I'm like, that was a mainstay of the artistic, the creativity. I believe our cuisine spoke to us. You know, that's why we call it soul food. But that started being stripped away, and so now you don't even have on your main strip any real soul food restaurants. You know, and so I think that, to the point, if this is going to be something that's done seriously, it's going to have to take actual policy change. You're going to have to get departments like the BAR and the preservation societies, the ones that love to say they're about preserving. Well, let's preserve Black people. Let's preserve Black culture. You know, those things, those individuals are going to have to be a part of this conversation. And the last thing I want to say, there has to be the funding to support all of these efforts. It can't just be a hollow gesture, a symbolic gesture that, oh, well, we want this, but you're not willing to also fund it. Where's our portion of that tax revenue that comes in from tourism and things of that nature that never seems to make it to our communities? So I'll stop there.
Zania, would you like to add anything?
No, I just want to say I completely agree. No, I was like, on the whole time, but no, I completely agree, especially what you said about the mural part. A lot of the times what happens when gentrification starts to happen and the white guilt sets in is they want to either pick an artist to kind of be, I guess, the face of diversity, so that, hey guys, yeah, this is still a diverse place, which is also one of the reasons why places get gentrified, right? Like they see an opportunity, they see that, oh, okay, we can easily push these people out because our dollar can definitely get to them. And then also the culture. So what's happening is a picking and choosing of the culture and what's palpable and what's easily received by outsiders. So yeah, I would like to, can you just restate the question? Sorry, I was just like really.
It's okay. As the community is changing, how do we preserve that in the arts, activism, advocacy, and keeping our communities? What do we need to see, feel, experience, and have access to?
Yes. Like AJ said before, we need that dollar. We need that dollar so that we can actually give the community, our community, access to what's going to elevate us. So if we're using arts to elevate us, we need to heighten the literacy within our community. That should be first and foremost. They need access to an expansion of education. We need access to, if we're gonna use art, they need access to art. They don't need a mural. They don't need a community event. What needs to happen is access to the resources that's going to actually help our community grow and expand and be a significant standing within this community that's happening, within the gentrification that's happening. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So what I'm gonna do is I have 2 more questions, but I'm gonna go to the chat box because they're questions, because there's like.
You want to give Councilman Mitchell a chance?
Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize when you said.
That's all right. I just gonna make it quick. As AJ stated, you know, we had a lot of restaurants around here. A lot of people that don't know this, we had Brooks Restaurant, Brooks Motel on Morrow Street, Brooks Pool Hall on St. Philip Street. You had Pete's Grill, Pete's Restaurant. You know, they had all these things that was owned by Blacks. We was Black owned. And see, we lost all of it. And that's why I mentioned in the beginning about churches, fraternities, the Greek organization, the Masonic family, all that's Black, they can get out and kind of help push these things along by coming. I know it's hard sometimes, but coming in the front of our city council to give us most, we need help. There's only 3 Blacks on city council as we speak, 3. You need 7 votes. But if you get these numbers of people to come in that city hall, it makes a big difference. When we're pushing to try to get something passed and approved. That's why I was mentioning about all these organizations, not saying they're not doing nothing, but they need to do more. If they're talking about preserving our heritage, preserving Black culture, preserving, they talk about it, but when you get to me, I hate talking and not putting it in action. They know me, I get angry with that. I say, you talk about all this, you're saying this, you're saying it from the mouth, but I don't see it in that action doing it. I can fight all day on city council. They tell you, I fight, it doesn't make a difference to me because what are they gonna do to me? You know, the people elected me to serve, not to be liked. And I tell them on council all the time, it's in the minutes, I'm not here to be liked. I'm here to serve. First, I serve my God, then I serve my brothers and sisters, that's everyone. And that's the way I live. But we need bodies behind us too, to help us along the way. And we are still here, like I said, we are here. We're still here in the city of Charleston, but everybody wants to stay in their little corners. It's not gonna work that way if you wanna see the changes taking place. So that's a lot of things we need to step up to the plate. We have to step up to the plate. And even in the schools, they need help in their schools. These parents have to get out to these PTSA. They need to go in those schools and see what's happening to their kids. They need to go to schools, see what the teachers are doing in there. We have to get up off our lazy butts and make a difference and get into those schools when you have kids in those schools. Unless we would not have it. I'm a product of Burke School. I'm a 66 graduate of Burke School. My sister's a 65. My brother's a 61 graduate of Burke School. We all graduated Burke School. That's not Burke School. That's a new school. I was there when it was being built. All the traders are gone, the trades. I tried to fight for the trades when they was building the school. And they lied. I'll say it frankly, they lied to the people. Technical trade is one thing, but industrial trade is another thing. It's two different things. We need to have industrial trade. So all the building that you see is going here, young people could make all this money, but they don't have a trade to come there. So the people say, oh, we need people who got qualifications. So they don't get the jobs, all these high paying jobs, and all this developments that's happening around here anymore. But one time they could have gotten the jobs, open their own business right from Peninsula School with a trade. We lost all of that. Sorry to keep you holding up, but that's I want to say.
No, that's it. We appreciate it. We appreciate it. So I'm going to move to the questions. We have some questions in the chat. And so I'm going to go ahead and move to those. So one of the questions that came in was, does a higher percentage of Black people lead to political power or control of life-sustaining resources?
It could, but we don't have it. Why I'm saying that, we have some people in so-called power, and that's it too. Now I'm saying it, they're there, but I don't see them doing much. You know, they get angry with me, but they'll be fine. You know, they're in that position that they could do, because even at the state level, we have state senators, state representatives. They get a purse to do certain things in their community. I don't see it in my community, you know, I don't see it in my community. So they can do more. I believe they can do more, because they can get with their colleagues there too, if they get that respect from their colleagues and get things done to help their community. And sometimes I don't see that, you know, and so it makes a big difference with that too, because they're there. But you got to be strong and you got to persevere. You can't be afraid. You cannot be afraid to lose a seat, which is not your seat. It's a seat belongs to the people. That's what it is. And that's the way I do it too. I tell people the same thing every day. That goes for me too. Thank you.
So the question is, does a higher percentage of Black people, and like Councilman Mitchell said, it has the potential, right? If those people, that percentage of people, are also in concert around understanding their collective power. One thing that I will say that also has troubled me in this Black History Month is that Black people have moved from a collectivist mindset to an individualist mindset. And because we are already termed a minority, when we move from the greater good, as people would say, but the collective, the community, you know, we've got people that say things like, oh, we don't want communism, and community and communism are relatively close. And the thing is, having Black people who are united in thought, and the idea that Black people together need to move forward would lead to us truly having political power and gaining control over those life-sustaining resources. So I want to give
You muted too soon. It's okay.
I want to give Zania
your finger was ready.
Yeah.
Zania?
Yeah, so like Councilman Mitchell said, yeah, I think it depends on who is in political power and what their mindset is. And if it is the mindset of the collective, of what we have chosen as a collective for us, for our mindset to be, because the thing is, when we are all on one accord, we can all move in one direction and preserve the unit. So the more we focus on trying to actually preserve the unit, and what that means is progress and upgrade ourselves and move forward and create a standing within our community, when that is the collective mindset, and those that we have in power have that same mindset, that is when we can see an elevation. So yeah.
The next question is, I heard that now we want to focus on community preservation. What might that look like on the peninsula as communities have been pushed more inland? What might bridging the gap between preservation on the peninsula and off look like? And just want to be conscious, we have a couple more questions we'd like to get to. So if we can make our answers a little bit shorter, and whoever wants to take up that question. If you want me to read it again, I can.
Just one more time, read it.
Sure. I heard that now we want to focus on community preservation. What might that look like on the peninsula as communities have been pushed more inland? What might bridging the gap between preservation on the peninsula and off look like?
Okay, they wanted to talk, we talk about preserving, but I always ask them, preserving for whom? I don't see it's preserving really for Black individuals. I don't see it. I might be wrong, but I don't see it. And so I always ask the question, you're preserving, you're talking about preservation, you're talking about historical, you're talking about this, but for whom? Because we're not at the table to preserve nothing for. So we have to fight ourselves and push them to make them do this preserving, if you may.
To Councilman Mitchell's point, I think a tool also might be a look at our zoning codes, which a lot of Black people, Black communities are not even aware of how zoning is used, and historically how zoning has been used to push Black communities and other marginalized communities out of their locations. So I think marrying the idea of revisiting how we do our zoning and how that impacts specifically the Black community is a way that we might change how we do preservation.
Zania, are you good? Okay. What is the responsibility of the Black secular intellectual, meaning artist, entertainer, those that platforms or publicize their creativity to the community? So let me read that again because it's kind of choppy the way it's written. So what is the responsibility of the Black secular intellect, meaning the artist, entertainer who is using their platform to publicize their creativity to the community? And I'm going to go to you, Zania, because you're an artist first, and you might be able to answer it for us, and then we can move on to another one. But please do set the tone.
Yeah, I think job of the artist, of the entertainer, is to create and create spaces. So what art is at its core is this creation. So it's our job to create and to assure that creation continues to happen. Now, for me personally, what art has done for me in my life is it's opened the door to a plethora of other opportunities just because I wanted to create something. Art, I was a theater major, so art opened me up to literacy. When I was younger, I read more scripts than I read books. And the older I got, then I started getting into Toni Morrison and Bell Hooks. And that is what theater guided me into. So for me, as a theater artist and a poet, literacy is the most important thing for me, especially in our younger generation. So I think the job of the artist is to educate and to share art and to create a space so that other people can express themselves through art. Like I said before, for me, I'm huge on literacy. I also work for Charleston County Schools. So whenever I can, hey, we can do this poetry club. Hey, have you guys ever heard of poetry? Do you guys write? Do you guys journal? Because What I am instilling in the next generation is a way for you to write, a way for you to speak with intention, and a way for you to understand that there is a whole other world that exists inside of books, and also you can go inside as well. So yeah, I think the job of the artists, the entertainers, to continue to create, and what that means is to create spaces, safe spaces, to continue making art. Yeah, I hope that answered the question.
It answered it well. Does anyone else want to add to that before we take our last question? Okay. So our last question for the evening, as we set this up, are what are your thoughts to prevent gentrification, and how can the community actively work towards preventing gentrification? Councilman, sure you look like.
I see you just looking up in the air. I wonder I think the only way we can do is by coming together, working together with the Blacks that's still here in the Peninsula, educating our youth. They have to go back, they probably go back to tell their parent, and having them to come out and get involved where they live, even in the political part of the city council where they live, who makes the decision where they live, and come up and push these council members to help them along the way to keep this from being gentrified. Because we make the decision. Even we have to vote on zoning issues. We can change things in the zoning issue. We can override the zoning, the planning and zoning department. The council can. But we need the people to come up and stand in front of that mic to help us along the way. And that's what I see can help a lot. But how we get them out there, that's the hard work. We have to do it. We got to find a way how to do it, to get them to come and get involved where they live. You live in the city of Charleston, this is your home. You was here, your parents was here. You got to fight. You got to fight. That's good. I'm not gonna say too much more.
Anjene, who are you pointing to? Because that would be Councilman Mitchell. So are you pointing to Zania?
I'm speechless. Because that's a big question. That's such a big question. And I completely agree with Councilman Mitchell. I think he said it perfectly. We just have to show up. We have to show up for ourselves. We have to act. We have to actively put in the work. And that does look like with our feet getting up and making sure that the people within the community are going up to the mic, are signing whatever petitions need to be signed, and voting how we should vote, and we're all on one accord. But yeah, I'm speechless. I'm just really absorbing everything.
So everything Councilman Mitchell and Zania said, but as a neighborhood association president in North Charleston for the last 14 years, and sitting in that position and understanding everything that Councilman Mitchell has been saying, I agree. I also say this. I don't know that it is a question that you can prevent gentrification as much as you can mitigate the impact of. So I think that's a distinction. As long as there are people with money and means who want to move into an area, not especially if those areas are primarily Black and low income, those people are going to move. However, the key is in recognizing the economic justice factor that we need to start having conversations about, because something that inevitably we always move around is the fact that Black people are almost inevitably at the bottom of the economic ladder. And so as Councilman Mitchell said, when you have a city that has an average home price of $330,000, however, the median household income for Black families is 34,000. You're already starting from a position of deficit. Our median household income for Black families in Charleston is half of what it is for white families, and we haven't even gotten into the wealth factor. So unless we are going to talk about wages and building an actual sustainable economic infrastructure to go along with political advocacy, and I want to hit on that, because while we want people to vote, we definitely want people to vote. We want people to show up to city council. I take it as my responsibility to make sure that folks are educated on what it is, that their rights and responsibilities, because one of the greatest tools that feeds why our communities tend to get gentrified more than anyone else's is ignorance. And as long as you keep people ignorant of what their rights and responsibilities are and what redress they have at their disposal, you can always come in and pick people off. Same East Side I was talking about, you had people who, when they were building the new bridge, lost their property because someone came in and said, oh, I'll give you $50,000 right now for your house. And for some people, $50,000 at one time was a lot of money, despite the fact that their homes were now going to be worth $250,000, $300,000. But because of the lack of knowledge and understanding, and that's something that I think we have to atone for and make sure we address in our communities to help people understand. Being a part of your neighborhood association is a key factor into understanding how your communities can and do change. Because in those meetings, you have access to your elected officials like Councilman Mitchell. You hear about zoning changes that may impact your area. You hear about initiatives that the city is going to be putting forward and how those initiatives could impact you. So there's a whole civic education component that I think goes into how we can mitigate, again, not prevent, mitigate what we term as gentrification. So I can go on about this, but I want to respect our time.
Mr. Robinson, I want to say one thing, piggyback on what AJ said with neighborhood association. I have 7 neighborhood associations and I attend every last one. And attending all of them, I give them information. And sometimes you get a fight back, or AJ can tell you, you get beat up sometimes for giving them the information out of your own neighbor. When you're trying to give them the information and tell them what's going on, what the city is doing, tell them that planning, zoning has changed and all this needs to come, you get beat up for it. But you still have to give the information, because the word always tell you, if you have the information, you're not supposed to keep it to yourself. So I can give you the information now, but sometimes it's hard to say if they're gonna follow through with it. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. We appreciate this conversation we had. So I want to end on a somewhat positive note, if it's possible to even do that. So in our listening sessions that we did for Awakening 10 last year, one of the questions at the end, which was the same tone of this conversation today, one of the questions I asked towards the end was, in the midst of everything that we talked about tonight, is there, do you still have hope, or do you feel like there is no hope? So I would love to ask that question to elevate that from each of your perspectives. Is there still hope in the midst of everything that you've shared, talked about, and the reality of what we see around us?
Well, to me, I always figured there's hope. I sing the song that there's hope. All the time in church, there is hope. But then with the hope, we got to get in work. But there is hope. As long as you got the breath, you breathing, got that blood running warm in your vein, there is hope. And with the hope, we still have to work. Thank you.
Yes, I too am very hopeful. I believe as long as you have breath, you have options. So I'm not sure what the future holds. I can't tell, but I know I'm very hopeful for the community, the Black community within Charleston. I'm very hopeful. Yeah.
One of the things, yes, not only do I have hope, I believe in us. And I think that that's one of the strongest things, one of the strongest things that a person, a human can have is belief. Beliefs drive you, beliefs motivate you, beliefs what causes you to do the things that you do in your life. And knowing us, our history, which is tied so much to this city, that this city arguably would not exist were it not for people who look like us, who came before us, and the sacrifices, the commitments that they made in circumstances that were absolutely horrific. I have to have hope because they did, because were it not for their belief in something greater, something better, something that they probably knew they would never see, but they wanted to see for their children and their children's children, they kept laying the blueprint and the foundation. And that was built upon the belief in hope for our people. And I say it just like that, our people. And as I pay homage to them, and as I look at my son and those children on the campus where I work, I have to have hope because our future lies in them. And once we lose that hope, we literally cease to exist. So yes, I still have hope.
Thank you. As each of you spoke and shared of your hope, I would be remiss if I didn't say I felt our ancestors just moving in the space. So I believe that we're all here for a reason, regardless of how our past brought us here and what our purpose is in our work that we're doing. I truly believe that there is a reason why we're here. I want to personally thank you, each of you, for giving of your evening to discuss what Black history looks like and the writing the new history as we move forward and preserving that and keeping hope. And not just about keep hope alive as a slogan, but literally put it in action and understanding that together we are more powerful collectively than we are solo working together. So I am, as the executive director of Enough Pie, I want to say that we are here. If there's anything we can ever do for you all at any time, please let us know. We will continue to engage, connect, and empower community members, and we look forward to working with each and every one of you as we move forward. For those that are still in the space and with us live, you will find that Simone has dropped the contact information for each person here in the chat. So you will find that you can reach out to anyone here. And if you want to reach out to Zania, you can find her at zania.art. And you can find Anjene on Twitter at Anjene 1976, on Facebook as his name, Anjene Davis, and on Instagram as at AJ Mr. Community Davis. And for Councilman Mitchell, you can find him at Councilman Robert Mitchell on Facebook. So as you continue the conversation, please do not let it stop here this evening. Please continue to have the conversations within your homes, within your friends, within your communities, and definitely within your places of work as we move forward to preserve the culture on Charleston's historical peninsula area. Thank you so much for being here. Have a good evening.